All right, we're recording. So happy Thursday night, everybody. It's 7 p.m. here, Pacific Standard Time. So if you're joining us from other places in the world, it might be different timing. But yeah, and I'm so excited. There's people joining us from all over. I know there's maybe some people from Australia, and I'm not even sure where else, but we're going to be able to touch in around that in a little bit. And I'm going to be asking you some questions about yourself. But to start off with here, let me introduce things and get us going. Tonight you're here for a webinar. You're probably, most of you are riders, some maybe not. This webinar is about the 5 steps to clearing your fear. And this can be applied to being in the saddle or just life in general. All these steps are things you're going to notice that you can use pretty much everywhere to help you with clearing fear. And I was really excited building this presentation tonight because I hadn't really taken the time to sit down and hash these out. I had a really good time doing that, and I think you're really going to enjoy the content tonight. So to give you a little overview of how we're going to work this through, I'm recording this call, so of course you're all going to get a replay, and you can look over that later. You can also share it with friends. I'm going to be sending you out an actual web page that you can send friends to, and you're just totally welcome to share this content. I'm really grateful for you all being here, and if you liked it, pass it along. Essentially tonight, how it's going to roll is we're going to start with some intros. I'm going to introduce you to me and what I'm all about and why I do this kind of work. And then I'm going to put it out to you and get a sense of, who you are and where you came from. I want to see where we're all coming from in this world. And, oh, thanks, Brenda. Daylight savings still. Yeah. And I always mess that up. And so after that, we're going to dive into the content and we're going to really look at what fear is all about and then move into talking about these 5 steps. And through each of those steps, I'll have some really nice little things that you can take away and just some things to think about. We'll be finishing off tonight with actually a 10-minute energy medicine session. My primary form of energy work is body talk, but I bring in a lot of different resources around that. And so stay until the last 10 minutes. You'll get a ton out of it. I'm going to work on everybody that's registered for this webinar. And so we'll all have a chance to kind of really work through and clear some of the fear that we've been holding on to. And I will at that point choose a surrogate. So if there's anybody that's just dying to kind of come online and maybe get onto the webcam here, I think that we can do that, or at least audio. I'll bring them on later and I'll unmute you and you can talk to me a little bit about what's going on for you specifically around fear and whether it's to do with riding or otherwise. Yeah, so that's what we're up to tonight. And then after, at 8 o'clock, I'm going to try to keep it between the navigational beacons here. You may notice that my one big thing is that I talk. So I want to just make sure that I'm, really respecting your time here. But at 8 o'clock, I'd like to open it up on the line for some questions. And yeah, and that way you guys can ask me a few things, and if there's anything that you're really wanting some clarity around, you can ask me some questions then. All right, so that's how our night's going to look. So let's get started here because we got lots of content to cover. All right, so here we go. That's me, and by the way, this is my horse Diva on this first screen. All right, so introductions here. I'm going to start. Who the heck am I? So my name's Alexa. You might have realized that already. I know a lot of you on this call, which is great to see you. And there's lots of people that I don't know, which is also wonderful. I became an equine sport therapist in 2005 officially, and I've been doing that work ever since. So over the last 12 years, I've had the opportunity to work with thousands of horses and their people, and just been really fascinated by the partnership of horses and humans. I, as some of you may know, I'm fascinated by all animal partnerships, but this one in particular to me really grabs my attention. And so through that time, I've been studying various modalities, a lot of them based in energy medicine, flower essences, Reiki, body talk, equine guided learning, all these different things that I've sort of put under in my toolkit because I've been fascinated with this connection. And, you know, in the last 7 or 8 years, I've been working more with people. And I never kind of thought that that would be the case, but I realized eventually that working with the animals person was just as effective, if not more effective, as working with the animal themselves, because we're often holding a lot of stuff that is affecting our animals, which we're going to get, delve into that tonight, especially around fear and horses. This is a very interesting dynamic that happens when we're fearful in the saddle, as some of you have probably found out before. Our horses are super sensitive prey animals, and they're very, very responsive to changes in tension levels and shifts in physiology. And so this is why we're here tonight. So that's me. I'm fascinated by this part of things. And I also know that this is a really critical topic for a lot of horse people. There's many horse people that I've met who've literally left the saddle because they've had a bad experience or something that's happened that's really shaken them to the core and has caused them to maybe stop riding or feel really uncomfortable when they're in the saddle. And so that's really like deeply motivating for me because I am horse obsessed and I love riding. And I know that all of you out there, or many of you, feel the same way. And to think that someone would be sort of restricted in that place because of their fears, to me, that's something that I want to work with and touch on and look at so that we can all do what we love to do. So that's my deep motivation here. I'm just one of those people. I want to help, and I want to see people living their best life doing what they love. I think that's the most important thing. So that's me in kind of a nutshell. I'll be talking about my horse a little later on because I'm going to tell some diva stories. But for now, I want to open it up to you, and I would love to just get some input here. So can everybody tell me where they're from? So I'm going to put, where are you from? I'd love to see where, let me see here. Here we go. Where are you from? All right. Ladysmith. Thank you, Brenda. Ladysmith. Thank you, Trish. Wow, we've got Shannon from Western Australia, Denmark, Western Australia. And Amanda is from Serpentine, Perth. Wow. Awesome. Thanks, Laura Bird, for sending these lovely gals. Deb from Victoria, Bert from Cassidy, Debbie from Nanaimo. Welcome, all of you. Anybody else out there? Oh, here we go. Hickson, Lindsay. Hi, Lindsay. How are you? Eleanor from Colwood. Hi, Eleanor. Good to see you. Kathy from Vernon. Awesome. That's where I went to school. Tina from Langley. And then we've got Jeanette from Port Alberni. Hi, guys. Great to have you here. Oh, Jana. Hi. We've got someone from Saskatchewan, Harris, Saskatchewan. And Danielle from Kamloops. Hi, Danielle. Good to see you. Wow, we've got people from all over the place here. Oh, there's Leah. Hi, Leah from Nanoose Bay. So lots of people from the island here. So I forgot to mention, I do live here on Vancouver Island in the Cowichan Valley, but we've also got people from across the world. That's wonderful. So welcome, everybody. And I just want to put out the question now, why are you here? So you can answer that really briefly. What brings you here? Hi, Tara. I think it came through. Let me just see. Maybe it didn't. Oh, there you are. Tara from Yellow Point. Hi, honey. Perfect. So what brings you to the call? Even a couple people. We know we're working through some fear stuff for sure. Okay, so Bert McIntosh, first time training a green horse. Wow, that's a good reason to be on the call for sure. Big time. All right, Eleanor, thank you. Fell off a horse 6 years ago and broke her pelvis. Yes, so big time. This is one of the reasons, why fear comes up. It's like we've had this past experience, this trauma that creates, a real trepidation later on. So that's great. Thanks for being here, Eleanor. Brenda, hi. So many things. Oh, yes. To be better for a horse. Wonderful. Leah, learning to trust myself and my ability. Awesome. Tara, fear of mounting. Okay, good. Trish, I'm here to support you. Aw, thanks, Trish. And to see what I do. Awesome. Perfect. Thanks, Deb. Yeah, that's a great idea. So, looking for new ideas for helping my fearful students. Perfect. And Brenda, yeah, being a better partner. Yep, Lois, that's great. So riding as a senior, very, very much like as we grow older, right? There's different things to consider and different things around risk management. So that's great. Jana, having a hard time getting back into the saddle after my son. So finding that confidence. Yeah, perfect. Hi, Lindsay. Okay, breeder. So Lindsay has 10 horses, lost my edge. Ah, yes, you're well-trained stallion. Yeah, sounds good. So let's work with that today. And Kathy here to learn to be more confident with my horse in new places and new situations. Yeah, maximizing the fun and learning. Perfect. And Debbie, my first horse was going blind. So some spooking and some falls. Yeah, so just a little bit shaky right now. Okay, awesome. So this is great. I'm really grateful for you all sharing so much there. And this gives me a really good idea of what to touch on today in our talk and really to how to work with things. So thank you for that. Much appreciated. So let's get back to the webinar here. If anybody wants to add anything, I'll keep checking the questions. And if I don't get to it right away, it's just I haven't noticed it yet. This is actually, I will admit, my very first webinar. So this is actually a perfect call to do on this webinar because I have literally mustache sweat right now. So I got a little bit of adrenal action going on. I've got a little bit of fear going on. So this is a really good one for me to do today of all days when I'm trying this out for the first time. And I'm so thankful that you're all out there and we're interacting. Okay, so I just moved to the next slide here, as you can see. So here we are. This is Diva's bum, which is one of my favorite things. She's perched on Morgan Cross here, and here we are riding up the driveway. So when riding a horse, we borrow freedom. So all of us are here because we love horses and we want to sort of expand our range with them without having to breach our own safety zones. I think this is one of the things I really realized for myself. I don't want to go into a place where I'm being risky and not taking care of myself, but I also want to expand those boundaries around what's possible. So let's talk about this. So what is fear? This is a really big question. And so often I went online and I started looking up quotes around fear. And it was so interesting to me. Oh, hi, Roxy and Jeanette. I'm going to get to these. I know. I'm sorry, Kathy. That was for a photo shoot. So I just rode for a second up the driveway. But thank you for noticing that. I know. So let's get into this here briefly. And we're going to come back to Roxy and Jeanette here in a second. So what is fear? We're talking about a naturally occurring emotion that has been designed to keep us safe. And when I went online and I started to look at these websites and these different quotes, a lot of the quotes were around this idea that we need to overcome fear, that we need to not that fear is a negative emotion. And when I looked up the definition, I realized so the definition that I found was that fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by a belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or threat. And so essentially it's the perception of that. And regardless of what is dangerous or not, it's important to honor the fact that fear is something that is essential to us and has been designed to keep us safe. So just recognizing this right now, we realize it's not something necessarily to fix, but to look at in a different way. All right. Oops. Oh, goodness. Here we go. Does everyone have it? Hopefully, yes. Right? People that don't have fear, it's a little bit of an interesting thing. And I definitely want to call someone out if they say, oh, I'm fearless. Oh, I'm not sure about that. I think it's a really healthy, essential thing that we have in ourselves. This, healthy, or what I like to call instinctual fear, make sure that ourselves and our horses are taken care of. So this is something I like to call healthy fear. So what I'm talking about here is the kind of fear where you sort of know in your core that something isn't right or you need to take action. And we've all felt this kind of fear before. I often get it where I get like a little voice in my ear saying, hey, check this out, or maybe we should look at this. Okay. So this is what I like to call intuitive or instinctual fear, where I just have a knowing that I need to look at something differently. Now, this is Diva. This is my mare on our farm here. And I wanted to talk today about the story of Diva because I think it comes in very beautifully here. A couple of parts of it, anyways. Now, Diva and I have been together for about 12 years, and she and I have an incredibly interesting relationship. She's a real kind of soul sister of mine, and we have a very strong bond, which is a great thing because when we first started out, it was not an easy road at all. And Diva was very spooky. She had, she was the kind of mare where you were walking down the street and a leaf would blow across the street, and she would literally jump sideways 10 feet, or you'd be trying to cross a stream and she would leap over it with like the grandest jump ever. And this was just, how we started out. And as a rider, I didn't have a great awareness of what was happening in my body. And now, when I talk about this, I'm talking about tension levels, but also my emotional well-being was not very tuned into that level. And often we aren't. As human beings, you may have noticed that we're sort of it's not very encouraged for us to have a very connected relationship with our emotions. And so we often sort of dissociate from them or disconnect from them. But what we need to remember about our horses is, wow, this is like exactly what we need in those situations, is to be connected to our emotions. And we're going to get into that in a minute here. So one really funny story of that intuitive type fear in Diva was one day where I was riding in from the field, and I was being, I would say, stupid. I was riding with bareback with one rein, and we were riding in it was about dusk, and this was about 10 years ago. And I had this little voice in my ear that said, Alexa, you need to get off now. And I went, no, I'm good. And I just kept riding. And literally about a minute later, a big heron flew out of the pond right next to us, and Diva flew sideways, and I landed in a huge mud puddle, covering my whole back. And I just giggled madly. So this is the example of a healthy intuitive fear, where I had this knowing come up and this sort of like, okay, I need to pay attention here. And in that moment, I didn't. And from that point on, I knew I need to pay attention to this. Whenever that fear would come up in me again, I would get off and I would take that moment. I sometimes get this too. I don't know if you ladies ever get this, or a gentleman, where you're riding along the trail and you can actually maybe feel like a cougar or something in the bushes next to you, and you sort of get those hairs coming up on the back of your neck. This is another example of that intuitive fear. So Diva was a great teacher for me, because what I realized about her spooking and all these things was that I had to become very centered and grounded in my own energy. I couldn't be her leader and her steward and carry all this fear at the same time. And that was exactly what I was doing. I was carrying fear and tension that I hadn't really looked at yet. And that's exactly where we're going with all of this tonight. So let's unpack fear a little bit more here. So just like Diva, how many of you have had that horse that is like thinking that it's going to get eaten by the leaf that's blowing across the road, right? We've all met that horse. And it's obvious to us that that leaf is not going to eat that horse. But in that horse's mind, it could potentially do so, right? So what distinguishes this fear? Where does that overreaction come from to things that aren't in our minds actually dangerous, right? We all have this as well. If we really look at it, we all have these things that we do when we look at the situation. Is it really dangerous? Not sure. So let's look at the physiology of that. Perfect. So reactivity. So looking at reactivity, that time when, or how about that other time when, and we'll fill these blanks in with, look how pink this makes me look. We'll fill these times in with, you know, that time when I like had this huge issue around something that wasn't really that big a deal, but for me it was, right? There's these scary times that are stored away in the subconscious. And it could have been a big accident, like some people have had on the call, different things that have gone on, maybe a trailering incident, all these things that basically get stored away in the subconscious and in the cellular memory. And what happens is these events, these situations have an incredibly potent effect on your physiology and the way you experience the world. So it's almost that sense, the phrase, the shit colored glasses. This is exactly what this is. I'm literally looking at my world through this distorted perception to do with those events that I've experienced. And this is also what happens for our horses. So a horse might have a negative experience doing something, being out on the trail or in a trailer, and then they're looking at the world through that lens as well when they're going back to that same experience. And I think we've all had the experience with a horse around that, where they've obviously had a past incident that's affecting their confidence now. So let's look at what happens when we react. So I like to use the example of being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. And here's a few things that happen at that time. So first of all, the amygdala of the brain, which is in the limbic part of the brain and is a very reactive aspect, it just goes into full-on reaction mode, okay? This is a part of our brain that's all about flight and fight. So it goes into major reaction modes and starts to send in the troops. By the troops, I mean things like hormones and the sympathetic nervous system. So there's something called the HPA axis, which is the hypopituitary axis, and it's involved in the stress response. And it starts to send triggers to trigger other hormones. All of a sudden, we have a whole lot of stress hormones moving through our bloodstream and affecting the way that we're seeing things and how we're feeling in our body. And then from there, the sympathetic nervous system starts to go on high alert. And this is going to be diverting circulation away from digestion and immune functions, sort of more non-necessary functions in terms of getting away from that saber-toothed tiger. And it's sending that circulation into things that helps us, essentially right into the muscles so that we can run faster and leap bigger and get away. And so this is kind of what happens when we have this reaction. Now, sometimes that reaction is necessary, right? If we're getting chased by a saber-toothed tiger or something happens where we need to get away quickly, this is a really important response. But a lot of the times it's what we might term an overreaction. So, and the body has an interesting physiology that goes along with it. All right, so we're going to start to talk horses. This is Allegra and my friend Kat. And yes, I know that we can all go on about horses for ever and ever. So this is the big question here. So we have a reaction, our physiology changes, and that includes tension levels increasing, because unfortunately, with most of our, the things that we're reacting to, we cannot necessarily fight or flee, right? So we have to just freeze, which creates tension. So how many of us have ever been on top of our horse and something happens, they spook sideways or something's going on, and we literally go into a freeze response? Okay, so we've all gone there, we've all been in that place. And this is the place where things start to get really interesting because, of course, we're not riding a motorbike or something that's non-responsive. We're riding a 1,000-pound prey animal. And so, as a prey animal, our horses are super sensitive to the subtle changes in their environment. And that includes our fear response. Literally, they can read our physiology like a book. And what our physiology is doing is fear things like my little sweat mustache and my heart rate going up. Maybe my breath changes, so I hold my breath, right? Maybe I have an increase in tension levels through my pelvis, my legs, my shoulders, all these things, right, that our horses can sense. And as we know, or as we're starting to find out, they're responding to that. Now, because we are making out to be their herd mate and probably also their leader, when we experience that fear response in our body, they also feel it and they react accordingly with their own fear response. So we have this lovely, smash up of two reactive beings that becomes quite the interesting ride, as some of us have probably found out. And so this is what I was dealing with initially with Diva, is she would go into a fear response and I would just naturally go into a reactive place. And what would happen was I wasn't very good at managing that reactivity and that fear response. And so Diva would escalate from that point on. And this sometimes comes out as things like jigging or rearing or bucking or just general behavior issues, sometimes just as subtle as pawing or something in the jaw, grinding their teeth, a little bit of ears back. All those things can show us that they're experiencing a change in our physiology in our body. So, and typically, unless you're riding a horse Buddha, and I know a horse Buddha, and his owner might be on here right now, your experience of fear will have a not great effect on your horse because of that physiology and because of that energy. And that's just one of those things. They're just that sensitive. And so, like I said, this can present in many different ways. Okay, cool. So here we're going to get into it. What are these 5 steps to clearing this fear? Because we all feel it and we all can have reactions, and these reactions can happen not just in the saddle, but also in life. And so how do we work with this so that we can actually move past it in a way that feels lasting and empowering? The very first thing, and I know this is often very hard to do, but it's so, so critical here, is owning your fear. So just going, you know what? I'm having a fearful moment. I feel anxious. I feel worried. Owning that you're feeling some fear, and perhaps even a little more than you would admit or like to admit. So if that's really coming up in your body and there's a lot of fear, okay, yeah, I'm feeling that. That's the very, very first step. All right. So I'm just going to take a quick moment before I get going here. And I know Shannon and Roxy and Debbie, I want to just look at this. So we got Debbie, Roxy, confidence, and from Cherryville. And Shannon has become a nervous rider. Okay, and your horse is very excitable. So just like we talked about here. Yeah. Awesome. Riding without fear. Yeah, that's a great idea, Bert. Yeah, I ride with my dog, but she's more like cougar bait. I need to get a big one. Yeah. All right, so here's our step number one. And I want to let you all know that there is a handout for this call if you want to grab it, or I will send it out with a replay, and it's just of this presentation. So if you want this presentation, grab it and yeah, enjoy. So here we go. Own it. And I love this quote. I found this online amongst all the other ones that said, overcome your fear, and fear is no good. And this one just really stuck out to me. So fight your fears and you'll be in battle forever. Face your fears and you'll be free forever. So this is really big to me. And in the work that I do and in the energy work that I do, facing your fears is absolutely, and just facing everything, really lighting it up is absolutely critical and an essential step to moving through them and past them. Oftentimes we're told to overcome them, to ignore them, to, don't look at them and they'll go away. And it's a little like that monster under your bed. Like, it really doesn't go anywhere. And it tends to get bigger when we don't look at it, right? And typically, if we try to fight our fears, we're really kind of fighting fire with fire. So we want to actually work with our fears from a really different place. And that's what we're going to be talking about in a little bit as we move through the steps. All right. So here's what happens for your horse when you own up to how you're really feeling. Here's Diva giving a big yawn. And what we need to realize about our horses is they actually hate it when you try to fake it till you make it, okay? So I give you full permission to stop doing that. You don't need to fake it around your horses. In fact, they feel way, way better when you just say, wow, I'm feeling some anxiety. I'm feeling some fear. I had this exact situation with Diva when she was getting her teeth done. And I was feeling all this anxiety and I couldn't figure it out. And I basically was like, oh, it dawned on me, I'm really anxious with dentists. And I was feeling anxious with the dentist there. And so as soon as I said, oh, wow, this is what this is about, and I owned it, Diva just relaxed completely. She'd been a bit fussy before that, and she just completely relaxed and was totally fine after that. And I believe it was just me really owning up to how I was feeling in that moment and being authentic. All right. Really, really important piece with our horses. And this is what I always say, to be congruent is to be trustworthy. And congruency is to do with this idea of our insides matching our outsides. So how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking matching what I'm doing and how I'm acting. Yeah. And so often as people and human beings, we're taught to kind of be something different on the outside than how we're feeling on the inside. And here I'm sort of saying, hey, let's be real. Let's be really real and go, yeah, this is what I'm feeling right now, and it's okay. All right. So there we go. I give you all permission. Haha. So question time. Let's talk about this. Some of you already shared, and that's awesome. Just in a one-word answer, though, here, what is your biggest fear? So just a one-word answer. And remember, this could be not even to do with riding, or it could also be something that is something like a very human fear. I mean, these are all human fears, obviously, but something like fear of what other people think, fear of judgment, fear of criticism, fear of being seen in a certain way, fear of failure, yeah, not being good enough. So just really looking at that and being honest with yourself. Yeah, getting hurt and can't work. Yeah, Trish, absolutely. I resonate with that completely. Falling and getting hurt, Tara. Yep, falling. Making a mistake. Yeah, thanks, Bert. Yeah, of course, that making a mistake that your horse never forgets, and then they're taking that on. Roxy, injuries. being alone and self-reliant for Brenda. Losing control. Yeah, thanks, Danielle. So, horse bolting or something else happening. Absolutely. Leah, fear of judgment. Yeah. And it can be, we can have various different fears. What I've really recognized in my work is that, oh man, fears are fascinating because uh, they build on each other. One fear is usually driven by another fear and then another fear. Yeah, Lois, fear of falling off. Yeah, runaway horse, Eleanor. Yeah, accidents. Yeah, and looking like a fool. Yeah, totally. So lots of different things here. That's great. Thank you, everybody, for being so open and honest about that. Wonderful. So one of my fears when it comes to horses is, well, one, Diva every now and again likes to do a little bucking in the field. So that's, always one that gets me a little, whew. And two, with Diva, actually, in terms, this isn't necessarily with riding, but actually, I have a fear that I work through around riding other people's horses. I've had Diva for so long that, for 12 years, and I always ride her because I'm so comfortable. So you may resonate with that as well. Getting a new horse, there's a whole new relationship to cultivate, right? And having that fear around that. Okay, thanks, everybody. So I just wanted to put this in here really briefly because I think trauma is a really important thing to look at. And there really is not anyone out there, horse or human, on this call, probably in this world, which is sad to think, that hasn't experienced some form of trauma in their life. And so oftentimes, this is something I'm going to talk about a little later in the call and that we're going to work through in the session, but that trauma, with it often comes reactivity. And for anybody who's fallen off and had a bad experience with a horse, what that feels like when that panic comes up and you're feeling it. And it doesn't necessarily even mean a lot about the current situation, but it's related to it. Okay. And so this is why I want to bring this to the surface here. We're not going to dive in because this is a whole different topic that I'm going to share in another webinar. But really important to honor that trauma is a very, very affecting thing and can really change our experience. Okay. All right. So number 2. Oh, shoot. Look, you just think of that as a number 2. Understand it. All right, so we need to understand our fear. Where is this fear coming from? More specifically, is this fear one of those real, intuitive, listen to this fears? Or is it coming from the past, sort of a triggered or a worst case scenario fear? All right, so there's a difference here. And how can you tell the difference? So this is a really interesting one, and one that I've really been looking at more and more. They're a little tricky to tell apart at first because the experience in our body tends to be very similar. Most of our fear responses, this is good to know, is they are based in the latter, okay? Based in past experience where there's been trauma or something didn't go well or there's been an overreaction. And that is translating into this present moment. And your brain is basically saying, this looks like that, okay? And those deeper parts of your brain are trying to take care of you and coming up and saying, hey, stop, and creating those limits to keep you safe. So once you've owned that you're experiencing a fear response and it feels like, maybe a twist in your stomach, raising the heart rate, breath being a little more restricted, even tension levels going up, let's get curious about what might be causing it. That's what I mean by understanding the fear. And we need to look and really be discerning about whether there is actual danger or just perceived danger. So for example, that leaf rolling across the road, not really actual danger, right? But we're perceiving it as danger. One of the other ways I like to look at this is I ask the question, this is a really critical question, and I need to actually put it in here. Is this fear serving me? Okay, so if I look at that question, is this fear serving me? Is it doing me, is it helping me? Is it keeping me safe? Some of our fears are most definitely keeping us safe, and others might be limiting us. Okay, and not to say that one fear is that fear is bad at all. Remember, we're owning our fear, and the next step will show you that we're actually doing much more than that. But this is around really understanding our fear and where it's coming from. So, is it serving me? And then questioning even more could this be related to a past event? We have to remember that the physiology of that worst case scenario triggered fear feels the same as that intuitive, listen to this right now fear. Awesome. So this is what we're doing as we're understanding this fear. And what we're going to do is we're going to follow the trail of fear, because most fears are actually cascading, meaning that one fear leads to another and another until it reaches its root. So, for example, my fear of falling off might be fed by my fear of pain, like I don't like discomfort or pain, and then my fear of not being able to cope with that pain, or even my fear of not being able to work or take care of myself. So Trish, you brought this up before, that, oh gosh, if I fall off, what's going to happen? Will I be able to take care of myself? And really, that fear is kind of serving us because, when we're self-employed, or Lois, for you, falling off, getting a little bit older, it's a little harder to come back from things, bounce back from things. So this is where some understanding of that fear, and then looking at, okay, how do I want to manage this? How do I want to work with this without necessarily needing that fear to cause more issue because of the tension levels and things that are happening? Okay, cool. Right on. So where does this fear live? This is something that I like to look at. Often this fear arises from a particular place. So just taking a quick moment right now, because we only have like 8 more minutes to chat here, and I have 3 more points to go through, is just thinking, okay, where does this particular fear live? And this is something you can do in the saddle when it comes up. Very often our fear will live in what we call the solar plexus. So that's like right here. And it can also live in different areas of our body. It might be living in the muscles, in an area that we were injured in. Where is that tension located? Okay. So this is a great question when you're in the saddle, and especially with what we're going to do in a little bit here. So keep that in mind. Step number 3. Now this is an odd one. You need to love the fear, okay? This is the next step here. Yes, I totally got all cheesy on you. Yes, I did. And this is my deeper work here, is with the energy medicine, not only do we need to own it and understand it, but we also need to bring love to it. We've been so trained to think of fear as weak or annoying or limiting, and we're really hard on ourselves about it. I shouldn't be afraid of this, or why am I afraid of this? And really, realistically, the truth is that our fear has kept us alive until this point, and that's a pretty amazing thing. It has protected us incredibly well. And yes, sometimes it is a little annoying, especially maybe right at this moment when it's limiting you from doing something you're really wanting to do, right? So how do we bring love to our fear here? Oh, here we go. How do I do that? That phrase, love it and let it go? That's what we're doing here. So your fear needs a little acknowledgement, a little love before it heads out on its next adventures. After all, it's kept you alive for all these years. So we really want to give it some gratitude. It's like, this stuff has done us really well for a long time. And you know what? It's going to keep protecting us as we move along here. And we really need to honor it for that. So number 1, we all have an inner critic. All right, this is that little voice in our head that gets going, and I shouldn't be like this, and why am I like this, and I can't believe I'm still doing this, and blah, 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 blah. First of all, give that inner critic a rest. I'd love you to just send it off to a job counting oranges in California or doing something else, because truly that inner critic is really hard on us about something that in many ways is very difficult to deal with. Fear is one of those things that is so reactive in us, it can be very, very tricky to work with. So it's not okay to have a part of ourselves beating us up. Everyone has fear, and anyone who tells you they are fearless may be a little out of touch with their own emotional experience, but that's a whole other story for another time. Okay, so that's the first thing. And second, the gentler and more compassionate, the better. I want you to think of your fear as a 5-year-old. And what would you do for that 5-year-old if they were needing some help and some support, right? You just need to go in there and give them a big hug and just tell them the truth. And that truth is, you know what? I'm an adult and I'm able to take care of things. I'm able to listen to my own wisdom about what I need and where my boundaries are. And just let them know that. Let this fear know that. I know that sounds a little odd, but it actually works. And ooh, look how dark it is getting. And number 3, bring out the self-care. This is like the time to bring out the big guns in the self-care. What do you do to help yourself calm down, release, relax, whether it's yoga, whether one of the things I do is something called the cortices technique to balance my brain. I will maybe stop my horse and sit and just breathe and relax and give them a big scratch and connect with them. Maybe I'll even get off and walk next to them for a while and have more connection. I can even take a chair out to my horse's field and just sit there for a while. All these things qualify as self-care, what we do to take care of both ourselves, our fear, our horse. And then we're going to do step 4 again. And step 4 I'm going to get to in a second. We're going to do it again and again and again. You're going to see why. Okay, here we go. I did it again. I got to change this. Step number 4, change that. Breathe into it. So breathing into your fear will unwind you and your horse in one deep, full exhale. Breath is so, so critical. And I know you've probably heard this a gazillion times, but it really, really is. It is the biggest thing. Here's why. A deep, full breath actually allows the potential for accessing your subconscious. So all of those triggers and those traumas, you can actually get in there with a deep, full breath. And this is why your instructor forever and ever and ever has been yelling at you, breathe, because of this, okay? You can actually unwind your fear and your tension almost instantly using a good, deep, full breath, all right? So let's just take a couple right here, right now. I want you to imagine that you're breathing right into the belly. So I'm just going to show you here, right down into here. And you're just going to sit up tall and put both feet on the floor. Take a deep breath into that belly. And then I want you to actually, if you can, exaggerate that exhale. And letting those shoulders just relax and the neck relax. And then a couple more of those. Deep inhale into the belly. Audible exhale. And one more. Good. There we go. Nice one. So, do you feel any different? Here's why breathing is the best. This is just a couple reasons. All right. So we owned our fear. We got curious about it. Now we need to actually release some of it. And remember that most of the energy of fear, it comes in as contraction or tension. It looks and feels like tension. And this is what our horses pick up on. So remember how you were feeling that fear in a specific place in your body. So one thing here is you can actually take that breath into that area and imagine your breath like waves on a shore. And that it's just slowly but surely breaking down your tension patterns as you give that place attention and love. And then you can take that breath into your whole body. This is a beautiful exercise, and take it right out to the tips of the toes and the ends of the fingers and right up to the top of the head. And on that in breath, bringing awareness, and that out breath, releasing tension and holding from the whole system. And as we do this, and as we are able to keep more attention and awareness on our breath as we ride, we can start to observe our horse's response to that and what happens in your own body, your own focus, your own balance. And this is a wonderful feedback loop, because it shows you how much changes with just a change in the breath. It's absolutely beautiful. So breathing naturally brings us into the present. And this is exactly where our horses live all the time, where intuition lives, where our heart lives. And it's a wonderful place to hang out as much as you possibly can. Present moment, not in the past, not in the future, right here and now. It's way safer here as well, because we're totally in tune with our environment and with our own intuition. So those natural instinctive fears, those intuitive fears that actually keep us safe, can rise up and help us move through our environment without harm. Okay. Yeah, and really interesting to note here that most of our limiting fears come from other places than the present. They'll come from the past, they'll come from worst case scenarios in the future. They tend not to come from the present, and that's a really good way to discern what you're experiencing. Awesome. Letting go with the exhale, so important. Allow that unwinding. And you know what? Do it audibly, because your horse will not judge you. They will actually love it. Just often we even carry fear that isn't ours. So imagine that all that fear is just releasing out the bottom of your feet. I like to say anything that is not mine goes out my feet, and I just let it go. Awesome. Okay, there's Diva. Step number 5. Obviously, I really need to work on the numbers here. Thanks for your patience, guys. I'm going to change the PowerPoint, so don't worry about downloading what you've got. I will change this up. So last thing, ask for help, support. And as riders, we're kind of bad at this. We kind of think that we're meant to do everything on our own. I don't know if anybody can relate to that. I know I can. So even though, it can sometimes feel a lot easier to just do it on our own because we know exactly what we're doing, we need to work with others on this, particularly if we've experienced a trauma that is not moving on its own. Okay, this is so, so critical. So especially if steps 1 through 4 aren't really cutting it for you, you need to, I would really, really encourage you to find the help that you need, because it's really no fun at all doing life and riding with fear limiting your enjoyment of your experience, right? So, and I love this quote from Brene Brown: to love ourselves and support each other in the process of becoming real, right? Owning it and just knowing what we need is perhaps the greatest single act of daring greatly. Yeah. Anybody who hasn't read this book, do it. Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. Very, very good one. All right. So when I asked this question, and we don't have time right now for me to type it in, but would you like some more support in this area so you can get on with doing what you love? And I think most of us, there's support in so many areas. I think it's really necessary to look at these areas. So it might be a coach that you have, a friend, someone that can ride out with you. Looking at those comfort levels, there's support everywhere that we look. And really building that team up so that you feel wonderfully supported and that you can call out to these people to come in and help you when necessary. Okay. Very, very important stuff. And this cultivates incredible amounts of safety and comfort when we do this for ourselves. If anybody's had that experience of really reaching out and saying, hey, I don't feel comfortable riding on the trail on my own. Will you come with me? What an incredibly safe feeling to have another solid horse and rider there with us. And it builds confidence. This is how we build confidence. And what I want to say here, and I don't have this in here, but never throw yourself under the bus. And what I mean by this, don't say, oh, I need to get through this, and so I'm going to go out and I'm going to do this thing that totally freaks me out because that's going to be the way I get through it. I can say from personal experience it doesn't work. Set yourself up for success and do that by asking for help and reaching out. All right, preaching over. So I just wanted to share this here. I would love to be of help. And if any of you have really resonated with me tonight on the call, look at this beautiful pink. I would love to help you out and help you with the big fears, the little fears, all of that. I'm actually tonight offering a wonderful, it's an online course, and I have more information on it later on and a link, and I'll send it out with everybody. But it's my Modern Day Cowgirl 21-day boot camp. It's a way to get to know me. It's an online experience, but it also includes one-on-one time with me to really unpack a lot of this stuff and look more deeply at your fears. And it also has a beautiful webinar that I'm going to do on healing horse-related trauma. So if you are interested, it'll be as a link in your replay link, and I would love it if you looked at that if it felt like a fit. All right, so ready for your session? I only went a little bit over here, so we still have a couple of minutes, and hopefully you stay on the call. And what I'm going to ask here is, any volunteers? Oh, Shannon just put a little something up here. Shannon, I love the quote. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where we have to be that balance, right? We feel the fear, and then see, look, how far can I? Where's that edge for me where I still feel safe? Oh, Shannon. Okay, it's between Brenda and Shannon. Let's do a little bit of both. Brenda, are you right if I bring Shannon on for a little bit here since she's come from so far? Okay, let me try this out, Shannon. Attendees. Shannon, where are you? There you are. Okay, I'm gonna unmute you. Shannon, you there?
Yes, I am.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
See if I can hear you here.
I'm just on my computer mic and
Okay,
speakers.
I can't hear you at the moment. Let me just see if this is my... Hello, Shannon?
Yes?
Oh, there you are. I had it hooked up to the wrong thing. Hi,
Okay.
welcome.
Hello, thank you.
Hello. All right, so Shannon, you're going to be our surrogate for the session today, all right?
Sure.
Okay, and we're going to be doing a little bit of body talk. So what I'd like to work with you, Shannon, is you're going to be sort of representing everybody on the webinar today. So we'll get into a little bit of what you've been working through, but also sort of work with the whole group at large as well. Does that sound good?
Yes, it does.
Awesome. Okay. So you talked a little bit about your fear, Shannon, that you were, I have to go back through here. Will you tell me a little bit about kind of the fear that's been coming up for you in the last little bit?
Um, I lots of things in life just make me nervous
Okay.
now that never used to.
Yep, totally. And is there anything that you find has started that, or did it have a specific start time or incident?
I've always been really sensitive, particularly with
Yep.
animals. Like I'm not sure if I'm an empath,
Yep.
but
Yeah.
um, I worry about how they're feeling and if they're in any pain. That's a big part of it. But I think it was triggered from when my daughter was, she's been in a couple of accidents and
Okay.
was very traumatic, but it's sort of spread into my horse work as well now.
Absolutely. Okay. Excellent. Well, let's look at that. And I think that resonates with a lot of us where there's been an incident that kind of has affected us, at a fundamental level in terms of our feelings of safety. And so, yeah, this will be great to work with. So, What I'm going to ask of you, Shannon, are you okay? I know you're at work. Are you all right to kind of take a moment?
Yes, I can take a moment.
Okay, awesome.
I might be interrupted, but I'm hopefully not.
Okay, excellent. Just keep us posted here. So we're
Yeah.
going to check in with everybody here, and I'm just going to invite everybody to take one of those nice deep breaths into the belly and then out again. And I'm just going to check in here on my end to where we need to go today. And it's great, Shannon, because you can give us some feedback on things as we go along. So we're actually starting out doing a general balancing, just around general fear. This is what I might term stress, or just kind of an overall feeling of fear. And we're actually doing a wonderful kind of decompressor technique here with that. And we're also doing a lovely brain balancing called the cortices. Now, we're going to work specifically with the fear of getting hurt. And this is not only ourselves getting hurt, but someone else being hurt. So, for example, your daughter, or our horse. So, in terms of that, Shannon, in terms of being hurt, is there a fear that's kind of like, if we thought of that cascading fear, what would be the worst thing that would happen if you or your daughter got hurt? What would be the bigger fear under that?
Um, Sometimes when I think about if my daughter died,
Yeah,
or if I died, or if
absolutely.
my horse had to be put down, or something like that. The
Absolutely. So that fear of death and dying, I think we can all resonate with that, that's often the base fear of the other fears that we're experiencing. Would that make sense?
Yeah, and it's not so much a fear of the death. I guess it's the fear of me being the one who doesn't die, and
Yeah, being
having
left behind.
yeah, and having to live without this beloved whatever in my life
Absolutely.
anymore, and being able to cope with
Absolutely.
them.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Oh my gosh, big stuff. Yeah. So just breathe into all of that as you're owning that fear. And this is that bringing love to the fear, right? I understand you. I understand how that feels. Thank you for protecting me. Good. hmm We're also, for you and for everybody on the call, we're just clearing up some of the charge around past incidents and events that have happened around horses, in particular, where people have gotten hurt, where things have happened. And we're just going to breathe into all those. So I'm just going to tap this out, Shannon, really gently. And if you're at work, you may not want to, but if anybody else wants to tap, it's just tapping on the head very gently and then tapping over the sternum. And you're just going to breathe nice and deep as this shifts. Yeah. And we're letting that tension unwind in the body, all those fears. And this is just like shining a flashlight into all of those places. And any of us on the call that have fears in those areas, this is going to start to shift for us as well. Beautiful. Good. Nice. How does that feel, Shannon?
Oh, yeah, much more relaxing.
Good, good. We're just going to do a little tiny bit more here today since I've already gone over my time. Um, I'll just see where
Yeah.
this wants to go, okay? And so, We're actually gonna work with the belief that horses are dangerous because they are such large animals. This is really one of those ones that can be deep in us, and so we're actually going to start to unwind that a little bit, so that we can really see our horses as who they are and cultivate more trust and confidence in them. Okay. And then we're going to work with the adrenals around that. Those are the glands that get really goey and flight fight response. Yeah, yeah. Hmm. And we're just going to kind of love up those adrenals because sometimes they can get quite exhausted. And then we're going to do a really wonderful reconnection to our whole body so that we can feel that intuitive fear come up and we can trust our bodies a little bit more and have more confidence in what what is arising. And from this place, make better decisions in the moment rather than those decisions needing to be made by past experience. So we're going to bring that in, Shannon. We're going to just tap that out. Nice deep breath. Yeah, good. And everybody can just take those deep breaths as we clear this belief that horses are dangerous. And we start to really unpack and release the adrenals from being working so hard around this. And then we bring a connection into our body so we can feel more deeply, be more present, and release any tension that's been holding or shifting our ability to be aware. There we go. Okay. How's that feeling, Shannon? Are you there, Shannon? Oh, have we lost her? Oh, we may have lost her. All right. That's okay. All right, everybody. That's our session for tonight. That feels good. I like that. All right. So some of you are still here. So I'd love to just type in the chat uh, one word. How does that feel? Any change? Well, we'll just see how that feels for all of you. And there may not be any shift. I'm going to turn the light on here because I'm looking like a bloody ghost. Oh, there we go. Aha. Hi. And you may have felt some shift here. Oh, look at this. So Shannon's just been interrupted. She says, lovely calming technique. Lois says, relaxed. Leah says, more relaxed. Feels great. Just learned about EFT last month. Wonderful, Bert. That's great. Roxy eased a little bit. Tara, more relaxed. Tina, liberating. Nice. Jana, relaxing and empowered. Lindsay, no change for me as yet. That's okay, Lindsay. It can sometimes shift in ways that we don't even feel. So don't worry about that. I didn't feel body talk for the first like 2 years that I, maybe not that long, but a year that I worked with it. So no worries about that. It is shifting on a deeper level. Awesome. Yeah, using the deeper breathing. Great, Bert. Amanda, you're welcome, Amanda. Oh, good. That's awesome, Amanda. I'm so glad. Breathing is amazing. Yes, isn't it, Debbie? I love it. It's such a trick and it's so simple. Oh, yes, Trish yawning. I know. And it's like it's completely contagious. Oh, awesome. Endo tapping. I'll have to learn about that. Thanks, Bert, for that. I'll look into it. Wonderful, guys. That's so great. Thank you for all your contributions here. Oh, you're so welcome, Tara. It's great to have you on the call. Aw. Oh, I did it again. Let me go back here. So if you want more, guys, we're all done for today. I did okay. If you want more, you can either go to alexalinton.com there, and the link is on there, or check out my online course. It's a really amazing one, and I don't know if anybody on this call has ever done it, but I've had some riders go through it that just adored it, and it's a really fun way to work with me and get to know me, but also to learn to connect with your horse on a different level. There's 10 video series in that where I go through and essentially work with Diva and the herd, and it's just so fun. And you also get one-on-one time with me. So go on and check it out. Modern Day Cowgirl, alexalinton.com at Modern Day Cowgirl. And I'll be sending out these links later. And high fives all around, you guys. You rock. If you want to stay on the call and get some questions answered, totally do so. And just pop them down below. Oh, awesome. We have way more. Thank you. Yay. You did great. Thanks, Eleanor. Super. Thanks, Leah. This is awesome. I love this whole chat stuff. Thanks, Roxy. Aw, thanks, Lindsay. Yes, Shannon, we'll have a replay, so no worries about that. Thanks for your time. Yeah, thanks, Bert. Thanks for your time. Thanks for coming out. Absolutely. So if anybody wants to stay on the call, oh, you're welcome, Jana. Awesome. I'm so glad it was what you needed. That's great. So if anybody wants to stay on, do so. I would love to take some questions if you have any. And otherwise, have an amazing night, you all. It's been great to do this with you. And yeah, maybe I will see you soon. I really hope so. Oh, you're welcome, Kathy. And thank you, Debbie. Have a great night, everybody. And stay on if you want to answer questions. I'm going to turn off the recording now.